The Illinois Railway Museum, the largest railroad-focused museum in the United States. As anybody who watches train YouTube videos, I quickly learned about the museum via it being mentioned as places where locomotives ended up in preservation. I didn't know much about the actual museum, but when my aunt offered to take me there in the early months of 2022, of course I agreed. And this is the story of how it happened. Now, the time of the trip had finally come. Thinking ahead, my mom had me go and stay the night at my dad's house the previous night, so that she wouldn't have to get up early in the morning to drive me over there so that I could go for the IRM trip. Of course, my aunt was also there. But I wasn't about to let a perfectly open evening slide with no trainness. So of course, I had my aunt take me to the depot while my dad finished up his work for the day. The first train we caught was a westbound Union Pacific Intermodal. It was led by a -9 and trailed by an SD-70M. Interestingly, it has a string of coal hoppers at the front. This shot was completely bodged up because I tried to focus more on the SD-70M. So, sorry for the terrible panning. The second train was a westbound Norfolk Southern Intermodal with 2 -9s. Third train was a westbound Union Pacific Intermodal with 2 GEVOs. This one's going quite fast for depot standards. The fourth and last train was the grand finale, eastbound Norfolk Southern local freight with SD-40-2s. The trailing one is XBN. I was so proud of that SD-40-2 catch that when I got back, I forced my dad to teach me how to take a screenshot on my iPad so that I could get this shot with the SD-40-2 next to the sun. The rest of the night was pretty chill. We pretty much hanged around and did normal stuff we did while over at Dad's house. That night, I went to bed, excited for the next day to come. Day 2, as early as coffee could get my aunt and dad to wake up, we headed off for the Illinois Railway Museum in Union. We decided to drive because, what other option did we have? The footage you're seeing here is from when we passed through downtown Chicago in the middle of the trip. Oh boy, this was really surreal. And for the entire way there, we played road bingo, and Charity absolutely demolished me. When we got to the museum, I got really really hyped. But unfortunately, we had arrived there a little earlier than the museum's actual opening time, so we had to wait. While we were waiting, though, we heard a horn. On the other side of the parking lot, Illinois Terminal GP7 locomotive number 1605 was scuttling across the IRM, ready to start its morning switching duties. We raced over to get a video of it. Unfortunately, part of the video was blurry because it had to force its way through raindrops. It's not focusing behind the camera. This day, it was pouring. Here you can see 1605 passing by a signal, an exit sign, as well as the fence blocking my view of it. And then, in typical dad fashion while we're bored in the car,
complete doofus. Getting wet, waiting to look at trains. Song complete. What?
my dad had sung that ridiculous song while I wasn't filming, and I had to film a recorded version of it. The what at the end is because he didn't finish the entire song. We hadn't expected it to be raining, so we didn't bring umbrellas. We walked our way down, bought an entry ticket, and headed to the gift shop where we bought train umbrellas and ponchos. Before we headed over to this small junction here leading into Barn 9, there we caught 1605 switching again. It was pushing one of the Strasbourg replicated Thomas dummies into a siding. I never got a picture of it because I didn't go over to see it because it was absolutely pouring and I didn't want to be out in the rain unless I absolutely had to. The IRM is big. Being it absolutely was pouring, our only option was to tour all of the inside exhibits today and focus on the outside stuff tomorrow. So we headed across the IRM to the farthest barn away from the entrance, Barn 3. This barn was full of coaches, but being past me, I did not care about coaches at all, and the only pictures I have from inside this barn are of this locomotive. There was also this snowplow on the other side of the barn. My dad thought it was really interesting. It's just a snowplow, it's not that interesting. We hopped the short distance from Barn 3 to Barn 4 with our umbrellas and ponchos protecting us from the rain. Barn 4 was the electric and streetcar shed. I wasn't really interested in electrics and streetcars at the time, and not really now very much either, but I'm still going to go over all the things that were inside of Barn 4. Here is a Cornwall Street and Light Power B1 steeple cab, an Illinois Terminal box cab Class B. This is a Chicago, North Shore, and Milwaukee combination baggage and passenger car. CTA number 2244, a L car set. Wisconsin Electric Power L4 steeple cab. Commonwealth Edison Co. 4 steeple cab. This is Chicago, North Shore, and Milwaukee 604. It's a wire maintenance car, and it's still used to this day by the IRM for its original purpose. Charles City Western 300, another steeple cab. This is Chicago, South Shore, and South Bend 1100. It was originally a interurban combine car, but then it was rebuilt into a railway post office car. Then it was converted into an overline maintenance car, and it was retired in 2004. Geez, this thing had a long life. After touring all of Barn 4, it was on to Barn 6, stopping to catch a picture in front of the signal on the way. Unfortunately, Barn 6 was temporarily closed, so we moved over to the next one, Barn 7. Before getting the chance to head into Barn 7 to see what it entailed, we got caught off guard by 1605 making another switching move. This engine really caught us off guard quite a bit during this trip. It also has a massive gash on the fuel tank, and I have no idea how it got there. Barn 7 was another sort of streetcar interurban type thing. The first car was North Chicago Street Railroad number 8. This thing doesn't even have any power in it. It's a horse-drawn car. This is New Jersey Transit City Subway Car 4. This is Milwaukee Electric Railway and Transport D13. It's used to carry gravel and other aggregates. This is North Shoreline's incredibly cool-looking, articulated, 3-car electroliner. That is seriously awesome. This is L7, sister engine to L4. This is Paul Revere. It's a CTA car used on the Skokie Swift, and it's painted in this patriotic paint scheme, which was a railroad fad during the 1970s. This is Chicago Surface Line's E223. It's a track cleaner car. But then, I heard a sound that would excite any young rail fan. There's only one thing in the world that makes that sound. A steam engine. We rushed across the barn as fast as we could, where we caught Frisco 1630, the #1 mascot of the IRM. But it wasn't on its own steam. It was being pulled by 1605. It was the reason why 1605 had gone into the yard in the first place, to move 1630. I'm not sure what the actual switching move looked like, as most of it was obscured by that red boxcar. Frisco 1630 stopped just long enough for me to get a picture of this cute diesel switcher, Joy Manufacturing Company number 2, before 1605 started shoving the 210 back into the yard. Just listen to that old engine roar. We headed back into Barn 7 for a bit to see if we'd missed anything. Turns out we did. It was the Chicago Surface Line's crane and this nice-looking green tri-window end car. But then, one of the relatively well-known IRM trams rolled by, past some volunteers working on the track. After that, we began hiking towards Barn 9. On our way, and near the cafe, we got stopped by 1605, detaching from 1630 and moving to do its next assignment. It was going so slowly that I could literally walk alongside it. Hello everyone, and welcome to Jogging with a Jeep. It was a short and wet journey over to this small signal box, which provided shelter from the rain for a brief moment, as well as harbored this shot of 1605, departing into the yard at the center of Barn 9 to do its next job. Another mad rush through the rain over to the big, bad boy himself, Barn 9. It was finally steam locomotive time. First was this Santa Fe Northern number 2903. As you can see, there are plenty of other young rail fans enjoying these locomotives just as much as I am. This is CB&Q Hudson 3007. This is probably my favorite engine at the IRM. It just looks so cool. This is Grand Trunk Western 2323. I didn't give this engine much thought when I was at the IRM. In my original IRM videos, I just said, this Canadian Northern. But this engine is a former excursion star, as the next year, I found some film of it in the 1960s traveling relatively close to my home. Here's some of it from the archive of the Western Railway Museum. This is Chicago, Rock Island, and Pacific 935. The driving wheels on this one looked kinda cool to me. Somebody fix that 040 ASAP. This is Illinois Central 201, and the only reason it's preserved is because Casey Jones was its engineer when it was in service. This is Commonwealth Edison Co. 5. It used to operate at the IRM, but because it was so heavy and because its wheelbase was so short, it wrecked the track, so it was withdrawn. And this was the crown jewel of the trip, and the number one thing I wanted to see when I left from my home. This is Norfolk & Western USRA 2882 2050. It is not in very good shape, and I'm petitioning for the IRM to fix it. Not really, but I just want them to fix it. To whoever shouted, train alert, thank you. As a result, I was able to catch 3142 stopping at this signal, next to the Springfield Avenue signal tower thing. At this end of the barn, there was lots of interesting engines, like this one. This is CB&Q 4963, and it's significant because it's the only engine that survived past Richard Jensen's private steam program in the 1960s. This is Milwaukee Road 265. I kinda always feel bad for 265. It's always overshadowed by its operational sister 261. Maybe one day this engine will be up to steam, but I'm just glad it's still around. Hey look, a GG1. This one is 4927. This is Toledo and Detroit 16. It's the only 440 at the IRM. You'd think for the largest railroad museum in America, they'd have more American types. Not again. Somebody please fix that, please. This is South Shore 803. It's a Little Joe. Yes, I'm going to call it a Little Joe. This is Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy SW7 9255. In that first picture, you can see the cab of 2050 behind the switcher. This is Union Pacific 6930, one of the Centennial type of locomotive. This and its class are the biggest diesel locomotives in the world. This is Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy E5 9911A, pulling the Nebraska Zephyr. This is the only E5 in preservation. We then decided that it was time for lunch. It was getting relatively close to 1 o'clock, and all of us were hungry. Luckily, the Illinois Railway Museum has a cafe on the property. We got into the cafe and ordered our typical food. For some reason, the pickles were really spicy, and I have no idea why. But while we were in the cafe, happily enjoying our food as well as the railroad memorabilia sprinkled around the building, well, we heard the sound of a diesel engine and rushed outside only to catch this. This was the job that 1605 had moved from the yard in order to do. It was to move this Santa Fe around the yard. The Santa Fe in question is Texas and New Orleans 975, although it displays Southern Pacific on the tender, as TNNO is a subsidiary of the SP. This engine was built in 1918 by Alco and worked on the TNO until 1957, when it was withdrawn and then donated to the city of Piedmont, Texas. There it sat on static display until the Illinois Railway Museum got their hands on it. It was cosmetically restored during its time at the Illinois Railway Museum. I'm not sure exactly what 1605 was doing with it here,
but it is nice to see a normally static engine being moved around. When 975 stopped, I went back inside to eat my food, but of course, I couldn't be left alone as 1605 moved to 975 again, and so of course I rushed out to catch this move too. 975 is still, to my knowledge, sitting in that spot at the Illinois Railway Museum, outside and unprotected from the elements.
After taking significantly longer than we thought we would to eat at the cafe, we then decided to check the IRM for any areas we hadn't been to. We spotted a barn in the back that we hadn't been to yet and decided to head there. On our way, we found this Milwaukee Road baggage car with a weird walkway leading into it. Turns out there was a book and DVD store on the inside. I bought this Blu-ray of Penn Central locomotive activity in the 1960s and 1970s. I gotta say, it's pretty good for the time. Anyways, after that we headed over to the main area that we were going to go to. Unfortunately, it wasn't another barn full of trains. It was the Hoffman bus garage. And worst of all, it was temporarily closed, so we weren't even supposed to be over there. But we were anyways. While we were sheltering from the rain in the area we weren't even supposed to be in, this subway car showed up. It's Chicago Transit Authority 4410. It's another L car, but a much older one than the one we saw inside the shed. While we were there, 1605 had finished up its switching duties for the day and was parked in the yard. Then, the CTA car started moving again. After catching that, we left the Illinois Railway Museum, but we would come back. This was only day one of 2 days we were planning to stay at the Illinois Railway Museum. Soon enough, we arrived at the hotel that my aunt had booked a reservation for. See, my aunt had booked a reservation here specifically because this was the closest hotel to the Illinois Railway Museum, and as a result would take the shortest time to get to. Of course, when we showed up the hotel, we went inside, of course, and tried to get a ticket into our rooms, just like any normal person going into a hotel would. But then, they said that we had not reserved the rooms, and instead, someone else had reserved the rooms and were already in there, ready for their night's sleep. And then we were like, wait, what? So we went back out to the parking lot, which was filled with weird mustache people, which I'm assuming are the mascot of this hotel or something, that were just everywhere. They were just everywhere. They were inside the hotel, they were outside the hotel. The entire hotel looked like it was built in the 1980s, or probably the 90s maybe, I don't know. It looked awful. Also, the entire hotel smelled like badly made ramen. For some reason, I don't know why. Anyways, we went out to the car, and then my aunt had to listen to 40 minutes of the worst hold music you've heard in your entire life, according to her anyways, before we finally decided to screw this hotel and go to another one. The second hotel that we went to last minute turned out to be much, much much better than the first one, because we were actually let in, actually got a room, and yeah, my aunt continued to spend the entire night fighting with the staff at the previous hotel to give her a refund, which they never did. Well, I went to sleep, once again excited for the next day, and the final one at the Illinois Railway Museum. The next day, I was up bright and early, way before the adults. Of course, they get up with a lot of coffee. We then drove from our hotel in Union down to the Illinois Railway Museum again. On this day, it wasn't raining! Yes! Let's go! Anyways, yeah, we headed into the Illinois Railway Museum just like we did yesterday, except I filmed it this time. And we, of course, stopped in the gift shop where I purchased this Express New York Central-inspired SD45. That looks good. Little did I know I'd be riding one of these later in the day. We went back to the car to put it in the car before heading back into the Illinois Railway Museum with our ticket in order to actually, do the outdoor exhibits. After the gift shop, we headed to the actual main area. We jogged into the yard nearby Bar 9, where we caught Commonwealth Edison Co. number 15, an SW1, and then TNNO Texas Type 975, which we had seen yesterday, now in its new resting spot. Those were the only two engines sitting in the yard nearby Bar 9, so we hiked across the IRM again to the first of the outdoor exhibits, the yard that Frisco 1630 had been shunted into yesterday. Speaking of the Russian decapod, there it was in all its glory. I was really looking forward to riding behind the 1630. Next to the 1630 was this engine, GN and ARR number 26. This one looks really weird. Arguably the most impressive thing at the yard was this Union Pacific rotary snowplow. It's number 9000057, and it's really big. This is C&O Kanawha 2707. This is Grand Trunk Western 080-8380. And the interesting thing about it is it used to work for Northwestern Steel and Wire, which was one of the last industrial locations in the United States to utilize steam locomotives. The last engine in the yard that I photographed was Lake Superior and Ishpeming Consolidation number 35, with this neat booster truck. Another shot of 1630 on the way out before we headed over to the yard that contained most of the locomotives that were on outdoor display at the Illinois Railway Museum. In that main block of engines was one of the ones I really wanted to see, Union Pacific Generation 3 GTEL X18. Man, I really think GTELs are one of the most underrated engines to roam America's rails. This is a Santa Fe Fairbanks Morse switcher. Not sure the exact type. Next to it is a Bud car of some kind. This is an MBTA GP9. This is TTI 260, the last remaining U28B. Face to face with Iowa Pacific 1515, an E8A. Farther down the line is Morristown and Erie number 18, an Alco C424. AEM7 number 945. This is Wisconsin Southern Railway 102, which is a B unit. Hey look, it's Columbus and Greenville 606 with the copyrighted thick Baldwin frames. This is Chicago and Northwestern 1685, an RSD5 from Alco. And this is the only Dash 8 currently in preservation, Union Pacific 1849. And here is Burlington Northern's entire executive fleet, consisting of BN1, an F9, BN2, an F7B, and BN3, an E9A. While I was photographing them, though, in this incredibly terrible quality footage, which got absolutely compressed and destroyed when I transferred it from my dad's phone to this tablet that I'm making this video on, a Wisconsin Central SD45 painted in the Operation Lifesaver livery showed up. This was the engine that was going to be pulling the train today. Little did I know the 1630 that I had driven all this way to ride behind wasn't going to be operating on this particular weekend.
Yeah, remember like 10 seconds ago when I called this engine an SD45? Well, I was actually wrong. It's an SD45MQ-3. Sorry for 30-second ago me's mistake. Anyways, this engine was originally built for Burlington Northern as number 6525, and then it was transferred to Wisconsin Central, which gave it this special paint scheme and coincidentally only changed the number by 1 digit. Ah, trains! Trains everywhere! On the other side of the yard, 3142 was moving around on the electric line with its fair share of passengers. Now knowing that 3142 would be back at the depot in a few minutes, we decided to head back over to the Illinois Railway Museum's main depot to catch the tram car departing. It was around this time that my aunt went off to go to the bathroom, I think. And so I pulled out another engine that had stowed away with us on our way to the Illinois Railway Museum. My Trackmaster Custom named Centennial, who is a Gen 3 GTEL. So of course I had to bring him to take a picture of him in front of the actual Gen 3 GTEL. After my aunt returned, we decided to ride that Wisconsin Central SD45MQ-3, so we headed over to East Union Depot to board the train. The train departed East Union Depot with a roar. Soon enough, it passed by the engine shop, where I caught the Chicago and Northwestern SD40-2, number 6847. I don't have any video of the run because past me decided that the only way I would take video of any run was if I could get the engine in shot, which I couldn't due to the enclosed coaches. Pretty much the only interesting thing we saw on our way was this little house. I don't know who it belongs to, but it's right alongside of the Illinois Railway Museum. I'd love to live there. Anyways, the train didn't do a normal round trip like you would expect. Of course, when it reached the end of the line, it reversed back towards the Illinois Railway Museum, through the trees, past that house again. But instead of stopping at the depot, it rocketed straight through the depot at full speed, going backwards, straight over Olson Road and down even farther down the 4 miles of track that the Illinois Railway Museum owns. Then, finally, when it reached the end of the track near Jefferson Road, it stopped and then catapulted back towards the depot, where the train finally stopped and let all the passengers off. After we got done riding the train, we headed down to the main locomotive display area again, where we asked one of the IRM employees if we could go to a scrapyard-looking area we saw in the back when we were approaching the IRM on that specific day. He said, "Well, you're not supposed to go over there, but people do it anyway, and nothing's stopping you." So of course we decided to go. But first we had to eat our lunch at the cafe again. With only 2 places left and one drastically closer, we quickly moved over near the exit of the IRM to where the model train exhibit is. When we got into the model train exhibit, there was plenty of Amtrak trains as well as some freight trains. They all looked quite nice, but then I noticed a Pacific steam locomotive, and the trailing truck was derailed. I told the model train operator that the trailing truck was derailed, but he denied that it was derailed. He said, if it was derailed, it would have caused a short circuit. But since the wheels on the rear truck were plastic, I said, the wheels are plastic! It couldn't have possibly caused a short circuit. And then we got into a massive, gigantic argument, and then I just decided to leave because I didn't want to deal with it anymore. After that whole fiasco, we headed to the first of those 3 giant scrapyard-ish places that the guy had mentioned to us while we were talking to him about that area. The first catch in the scrapyard-ish place, which is not actually a scrapyard, were these 2 ARR rail test cars, 201 and 202. There were lots, and I mean lots, of nice-looking coaches scattered around this yard. Of course, I didn't take pictures of any of them except this Milwaukee Road one because past me. Anyways, after that yard, we headed further to the next yard, which is even farther away. This yard was relatively small. Hey look, it's L3, the sister to L4 and L7, which you've already seen. Also, milk tankers are apparently a real thing. I thought that was just a TTTE thing. This engine is a really weird-looking Nicosa Paper Alco S1. Oh my god, it's a yard slug. I love yard slugs. It was only a short walk from that yard over to the third and biggest yard, which stored most of the engines and the ones I had seen on my way out. There was a TC Industries GE 44-tonner. The sheer amount of torturous walking I have to go through for this segment of the video is absolutely ridiculous. This Rapid Transit Authority work motor car, a Metra electric train set, these two box cars, one of them is M&S and the other one is I can't read it. This is a World War I troop sleeper. This is Union Pacific Fairbanks-Moore Switcher 1366, a former FM demonstrator. Oh, there's also this tender in the middle of all these engines that doesn't have an engine to go with it. And then I found a coach that didn't have a do not walk on sign on it. Hello guys, today we're exploring this coach that you shouldn't be in at the Union, Illinois Railway Museum. I'm taking a video of it so you don't have to. Yeah, this is disgusting. I'm taking a video of it so you can see what's inside. I don't want to make poor people come inside here. This is disgusting. This is very disgusting. Everything inside this coach is disgusting. That's disgusting. That chair is very disgusting. This hallway is pretty disgusting. There's more disgusting stuff in here. Oh, there's mirrors in here apparently. This is oh. It's definitely a mirror. I don't know what that is, I don't know what this is, I don't know what any of this stuff is. More disgusting stuff. This should not be here. This is very disgusting. It's very, very disgusting. This is disgusting. What is this? See, I'm in here, so what is this? This coach looks like it's been tortured. Probably because it has. Been sitting out here for forever. Oh my god. See, look at this perfectly usable in-service bathroom. Oh my god. This is absolutely disgusting. Flatbed with trucks on it. Okay. Oh, wow. Another tender without a locomotive. There's also this purple coach, and I took a picture of it for my grandma who loves purple. This flatbed has been sitting here for so long that there was weeds on it. This engine, although pretty boring on the surface, has a very in-depth and interesting history. This engine was built for Armco by Lima Hamilton in 1951. If you don't know the history of Lima Hamilton, they went bankrupt in 1951, and this was the last engine they ever made. I never got a proper picture of Wyatt Terminal number 103s. I only have this one inside the cab, which you can go in. This was the crown jewel of this area around here. Conrail, ex-Penn Central, and ex-Pennsylvania Railroad E44 Electric. Then I decided that instead of leaving immediately, I wanted a video of the outside of that Wisconsin Central SD45MQ-3 pulling into the station. The idea was first to catch it backing up through the station, but it showed up before we could actually make it to the depot. However, we did catch 3142 pulling into the station. Then, that Wisconsin Central ex-Burlington Northern ST45MQ-3 showed up. Now we can get an actually good look at the area around the depot, with a nice signal box, plenty of old-fashioned signals, as well as overhead wires for electric engines. The SD45MQ-3 is pulling 3 heavyweight coaches. The first one is Railway Express Agency 25, and the last one is Duluth Mississippi Iron Range number 84.
I didn't get close enough in any of these shots to tell what the middle one is, so I don't know. After we caught the Wisconsin Central SD45MQ-3, we decided to ride 3142 and go around the entire Illinois Railway Museum. Some things I found really interesting were that they had actual 1950s era ads on inside of 3142, which is just so cool. Here you can see we're passing by Barn 3 with the massive Union Pacific and Missouri Pacific logos. And here's the depot. As you can see, there's a railway-focused playground relatively nearby to the depot. Now we're actually departing the depot. We didn't board at this depot, we boarded at a different one.
It's fine. I'm putting music.
While we were on, I asked why 3142 was chosen to be used in excursion service, while every other tram at the Illinois Railway Museum was just sitting, not serviceable inside of Barn 3 or 4. And the answer that was given was because this tram had been used as a storage container for the longest time while it was out of service. And because it had been used as a storage container, it was upkept relatively well, and so as a result, it was in the best mechanical condition to be restored to operation. The engine uses overhead wires as its power supply, so it obviously took a lot of work to get those hooked up again, as storage containers don't need overhead wires in order to get themselves powered. Here you can see the tram is passing by the other end of Barn 3. Now we're heading into the yard where you can see a lot of stuff, a lot of rolling stock that I didn't photograph because I didn't consider rolling stock important at the time. There's this lightweight, heavyweight Rock Island coach, number 2255, in the foreground here, and in the background you can see several Union Pacific boxcars. There's also this 25-ton GE switcher, and this. It's the Southside Rapid Transit car. Interesting. There's also a Union Pacific boxcar, a Union Pacific refrigerator car, an unlettered 50-foot boxcar. You can see the AEM7 and the Wisconsin Central SD45. You can see a lot of trucks in the foreground. You can see the Route of the 400 Alco switcher. You can see the BN Executive Fleet again, 1605 from yesterday. An absolutely massive electromotive division sign left over from the EMD's 100th anniversary last year. The Hoffman Bus Garage, lots of old style signal posts, more of the Hoffman Bus Garage, which I didn't take any pictures of because, you know, it's a bus garage. Here we can see what the track looks like behind the IRM. All of this area is normally off limits to the public, but since I'm riding the train, I have the exception. You can see 2707 again, that Union Pacific rotary snowplow, parts of a crane that are also stored in this yard, the tenders of a lot of the tender engines, which you can't see in the photos, that ex-Northwestern Steel and Wire 080 again, which honestly is probably one of my favorite engines at the Illinois Railway Museum, another work crane. These things are actually sometimes still used on Class 1s today for maintenance service. Anyways, behind that there's plenty of old box cars and refrigerator cars. You can see Lake Superior and Ishpeming 280, I forgot the number, down there. You can see some CB&Q cars, an old World War II troop sleeper. I can't read any of the labels on any of these cars in this video because they're too far away from the camera. Oh, there's a tree blocking the camera. Of course there is. Now we're closer up. Now you can see that Lake Superior and Ishpeming consolidation better, that number 26 Mogul again, and of course 1630, which didn't move all weekend, and I'm really disappointed about that. Anyways, you can see that red EWEX boxcar that blocked my view of the switching move on the first day. There's Barn 7. Down there you can see some work. There's plenty of work being done on the tracks at my specific time of visit to the Illinois Railway Museum. You can see Gandy dancers in some of the footage from the first day, which you would have already seen by this point. There's barn 6, and you can see Joy Manufacturing Company number 6 in there. Very cute switcher in my opinion. As you can also see the cafe. This is the cafe I ate at today as well as the day yesterday. That's pretty interesting. The end of it is designed to look like an old coach. And there you can see Union Pacific 18 again, the Milwaukee Road baggage car that I bought that Penn Central DVD from, a sign that says Coca-Cola for some reason, a Union Pacific caboose, and lots of other things that are interesting at the Illinois Railway Museum. You can see a street light, a wigwag signal, and the Central Pavilion, the main depot at the middle of the Illinois Railway Museum for the electric cars, and my station stop. After seeing everything there was to see that I knew of at the Illinois Railway Museum, we left. The 4-hour road trip home was pretty uneventful aside from this. Guys, look what we found. Apparently the diesel here is $0. like it can't actually be $0, right? Probably not. I gotta say, I had a great time at the Illinois Railway Museum. You should definitely visit it if you ever have the chance. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this not-so-little documentary, and make sure to come back next time for another documentary just like this one.
Surprises, surprises, they come all shapes and sizes. You never know what's round the bend. It might delight, it might offend. That's why they're surprises with all their highs and lows. You come on top or come full stop. Who knows, who knows?